Welcome to the Gen Z Marketer podcast, where we have marketing conversations and everything in between. I'm excited for this episode because March is Women's Month, and I invited a guest who will share her advocacy on empowering women and menstruators. We'll discuss that and more in this episode under the Market Talk series, where we invite special guests here in the podcast. Our guest for today is someone who I studied with back in college. We were blockmates. We took up communication and we actually graduated 5 years ago. So I'd like to introduce and welcome to the podcast Ninai Chavez of We Bleed Red. Hi Ninai, how are you?
Hi, Jamia. I'm great. How are you? Happy
I'm
Women's Month.
I know, Happy Women's Month. It's so hot na nga because it's summer.
Oh, it is actually.
Yeah. So anyway, now that we're here, why don't you tell us a bit more about yourself and then of course about We Bleed Red.
Okay, sige. So my name is Janina Zarina Chavez. But as people know, they call me by the name Ninay. I founded We Bleed Red back in 2019. But before that, I'm a 25-year-old Filipina feminist. And I've been working in the government for 3 years now as an executive assistant to an undersecretary sa DPWH. And then I started We Bleed Red when I also took up my master's in Women and Development sa UP Diliman. So while studying sa UP Diliman, that provided me with the venue and the encouragement to start this movement, which is an online campaign that aims to demystify and destigmatize the word as well as the sight of menstruation. So basically, ang advokasya namin is nagfo-focus sa pag-normalize ng regla. Yes.
Right, all right. And I actually really found it interesting kasi I remember seeing your post 2 years ago when you were starting out and your first few photos with that photo shoot na I was like, wow, that's so that makes sense nga naman na yun nga, why is talking about your period something almost very taboo, almost
Mhm.
parang yun nga, some people think it's gross. And for me, I mean, as a woman, I see it as a normal thing. I don't see such a big deal about it. And I don't get also why some people make it seem like it's something that we should be ashamed about. Like even sometimes nga, as girls, I remember while I was studying in a co-ed school, if you're gonna ask for a napkin, from your classmate has to be patago pa in a way na parang,
Oo.
for me, it's not a big deal. Eh. Parang just give me the napkin kahit makita ng boys. So what? It's
Yeah.
normal, di ba?
Okay, actually, yes, Jimmy, tama ka. I'd like to think na merong three types of behaviors. There are those people na disgusted with the word and the sight of menstruation. There are those people who think, yeah, it's normal, but you don't have to talk about it. And there are those people na, yes, it's normal and that we should advocate for it. So, syempre I'm on that advocating part kasi I want to encourage the other menstruators, those who think it's normal but don't really recognize it as something that should be a social issue or considered a social issue, and those people that are disgusted by it. So I want to encourage those people, everyone, menstruators and non-menstruators, to join in the conversation of menstruation because everyone will be affected by this and I can expound with that siguro later kung paano naapektuhan yung non-menstruators then sa menstruation ng mga menstruators. Do I make sense?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oo. And of course, yeah, one of my questions, since we talked about a bit on how you started this, um,
Mm-mm.
since technically in a way this is like women empowerment, right?
Mm-hmm.
And when you say women empowerment, there's a lot of things I think you could say under it. There's a lot of different facets under it. Parang among
Yeah.
all of these advocacies, why did you choose really to, focus on about empowering menstruators and of course about menstruation in particular?
Sige. So, I guess ikwento ko na lang din the story behind parang the founding of We Bleed Red, kumbaga.
Yeah.
Kasi I work in a male-dominated government agency. So, unlike you, Jamie, I have this behavior na when I borrow napkins or ask for napkins from other menstruators, I hide or whisper
Yeah.
So I'm ashamed of that kind of behavior. And then one time it clicked on me na parang, wait, ba't ko tinatago yung napkin ko papuntang CR when the menstruation is something I did not choose to do or choose to have? So parang bakit ko kinahihiya? Why do I have this internal misogyny about this kind of normal, natural biological function? So I realized then na parang menstruation should be a social issue. It should be considered as a social issue. Doesn't mean that people don't talk about it. Is that hindi naapektuhan ng mga tao. And then, starting We Bleed Red, it just started as a online campaign na nag-release lang kami ng photo shoot to raise awareness, to make a noise about menstruation. And yun nga, yung stigma yan, ma-destigmatize and ma-demystify siya. But as I went along with it, I learned a lot, like menstrual health is a very important health and for females or people with female reproductive system. Tapos, meron din palang period poverty kasi not everyone has the knowledge about menstruation. All they know is that they bleed every month. But they don't know, madaming may hindi pa alam sa mga knowledge about menstruation. Parang basic lang na, oh, you bleed once a month, wear a napkin. But there are other factors affecting your menstruation, your psychological factor, even economically, politically, you are affected with your menstruation. So these are the things that as I went along with my advocacy, ito yung mga natutunan ko din. So habang nagtuturo ako ng iba sa advocacy yung ito, natuturuan ko din yung sarili ko.
Right, oo. Like you mentioned nga, oo, one of the things is period health. And I did notice that throughout. You did like release some videos about PCOS. You did release also some
Yes.
campaigns about educating people more about period health. And I'd like to hear more about that. Like what have you done or what have you learned so far about it? Kasi for me, honestly, even I've been going through menstruation for how many years already, but for me, I'm not as aware as to like what else is going on nga beyond. Kasi syempre in your mind, you
Yeah.
only know what's happening with your cycle. With like for me, I remember in high school,
Yes.
I was reg. Ngayon, reg na yung schedule ko. Like all of these things.
Mm.
Mhm.
Okay. So, well, menstrual health is something that people don't know na are happening or the lack of it. Parang kumbaga, let's say, kasi let's put it this way, Jamia.
Mhm.
Nung nagde-deliver kami ng mga menstrual pads sa mga menstruators in need, we call them menstruators in need kapag they don't have the access or they have limited access to menstrual pads. So when we are delivering menstrual pads, na-realize namin that those people who don't have access to menstrual pads actually have menstrual health problems like endometriosis, PCOS. There's also that. Meron ding uterine fibroid na sakit sa uterus. And then these are also these diseases affect their menstrual health. So etong mga tabu na to, dahil may tabu sa menstruation, nagkakaroon din ng tabu sa menstrual health nila. They don't know what's causing it. They don't know kung paano sila gagaling. Kasi, for example, menstruators in need would rather buy um, food for their children, their family, kasi sa bumili sa menstrual pads kasi it won't feed their children eh. So they put their children above themselves. So yung mga tabu na to, nakaka-disrupt ng menstrual health nila. So that's why we're trying to raise awareness. From time to time, we talk to OB-GYNs to consult kapag may mga questions sa amin sa Weebly about menstrual health. We consult with the OB-GYNs and there are things na parang shocking to know na, oh my God, this exists. Kasi tabu rin pala going to OB-GYNs, di ba? So, hindi mo malalaman unless you take charge of your body. And when do we usually take charge of our body? It's not all the time eh. That's the honest truth. So, ayun, Jamia, I guess what I'm trying to say is that we're trying to fight this taboo kasi it has an overall impact in you.
Right,
Yeah.
that's true. And also when it comes to not just period health, but even health here in the Philippines, I think it's almost
Mm-mm.
like a privilege in a way because it's not accessible to everyone. Especially,
Mm,
I
yes,
would
tama ka dyan.
imagine for period health, it is. almost the same, right? It's not as accessible, it's not
Mm-mm.
as affordable
Mm-mm.
to everyone. So now you also touched upon a bit about yun nga, accessibility for like there are some people who do not have access to, menstrual
Yes.
products. Um, can you give like an idea, like here in the Philippines, what's that like? Like, maybe, yun nga, kasi 'di ba you did work na rin before na you have
Mm-mm.
helped out some menstruators in need. Like, how is it in the Philippines?
Mm-mm.
Kasi for me, I'm just seeing it based on what you post, but I'd just like to see also like how you see it na yun nga,
Okay.
what's the
Um,
reality that we have right now here in the Philippines when it comes to that.
okay, sige. With that, I also want to thank you, Jamia, for providing this platform to talk about menstruation. Kasi it's very important to me na malaman ng mga tao what's it like for menstruators to menstruate when they don't have access to menstrual pads. Kasi syempre, kung wala kang access, wala kang pambayad sa menstrual pads, iisipin mo, anong alternatibo ang ginagamit nila? So here are their options. Dahon. We're talking about menstruators in need, ha?
Right.
So dahon, they use basahan or sirang or lumang tela. They also use old socks as pasador. So these dahon, or sometimes they free bleed. Free bleeding is when you menstruate without any product, without wearing anything other than whatever usual garment you're wearing. So tumatagos talaga yan.
Right.
So yung mga alternatives na to, like dahon, dirty cloth, basahan, and free bleeding, this can cause harmful effects to menstruators psychologically, economically, mentally, physically. So, what's it like for them? It's very difficult for them kasi magkaka-anxiety ka for not having, you can have anxiety for worrying about your menstruation dahil wala kang menstrual pads. Physically, alam mo yon, syempre, it could hurt or damage your reproductive health system when you're not sanitized properly. So these things, it's very difficult for menstruators in need kapag wala silang access to menstrual pads. That is why we bleed red when we do napkin donation drives. We make sure to pick our parang candidates, kumbaga, kung sino talagang bibigyan namin, sino bang mas nangangailangan. Hindi naman kayo mag-distribute ng free napkin sa mall kasi we could guess that these people na nasa mall may kaya, may pambili. Hindi naman nila siguro kailangan ng menstrual pads. We have to distribute these napkins or menstrual pads sa mga far-flung areas, yung mga menstruators na malalayo sa civilization, malayo sa mga stores na kailangan pa mag-cross ng ilog, ng lake, para lang makabili ng napkin. So that's what we're trying to do, and that's what we're trying to teach other organizations then to, as much as possible, when you're doing a donation drive, whether it be a napkin donation drive or a basic donation drive, to always pick people na wala talagang access or nahihirapan magkaroon ng access to those things. So, very difficult talaga for a menstruator in need, lalo na dahil hindi recognized yung rights nila. Did you know, Jimmy, as a PWD, as a person with disability, since I have a PWD card,
Right.
did you know that napkins are a luxury items? It should be considered as an essential good.
Yeah, that's true.
Kasi,
Yeah.
'di ba? It should be considered as an essential good kasi hindi naman natin choice magkaroon ng menstruation eh. Hindi ko naman pinangarap na mag-menstruate ako eh. It happened to me because biologically I'm female. I have a female reproductive system. So, alam mo yun, pag gusto ko, hindi ako makakuha ng discount, kumbaga, the
Right.
perks of having a PWD, hindi ako makakuha ng discount sa napkin kasi it's a luxury good. It's a luxury good for menstruators. Pero look at it this way. Have you ever asked yourself, na what if men menstruate? Do you think mababrand to as a luxury good or as an essential item? Tapos, magkakaroon na ng period leave, magkakaroon na ng menstrual health rights, mag-recognize ng menstrual health rights if men also menstruate. But since, alam mo, it's a women's issue, it's a menstruator's issue, parang nasa likod na yan ng mga problema eh. Hindi yan pinaprioritize ng iba. When it should be prioritized kasi it's health eh.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So of course, yeah, one of you mentioned that you're also working like this platform is also about educating people about these things. So do you also see like this as an issue, like educating people like in less privileged or far flung areas? Do you think there's also like an education issue when it comes to educating them about their period health?
Definitely, definitely. I think there is an education issue happening when it comes to menstruation in general. Kasi for example, I remember back when I was in high school taking my general biology class. I remembered na when we talked about menstruation, sobrang bilis lang, wala pang 30 minutes. Sinabi lang na it's a cycle happening to a female reproductive system na nagsished ka ng yung uterine wall mo sa uterus, nagsished siya and it turns into blood. That's all I remember sa biology class ko. So, hindi nila tinuturo sa'yo paano magsuot ng napkin. Hindi nila tinuturo sa'yo yung um, paano maglinis. Kapag may period ka, do you have to take a bath? Do you not take a bath? Do you really apply? Di ba, ang dami kasing um, ang tawag dito, yung mga practices na hindi
Yeah.
mo alam kung totoo ba. I'm not sure if you've heard, pero na-experience ko na may kaibigan ako na you have to apply period blood, yung first period blood mo sa
The
face to
face,
avoid
yeah.
having
Yeah, I
to
heard
avoid
that.
pimples.
Yeah.
So parang these things were not explained to me, or I guess I can say na to us. It wasn't
Yeah.
explained to us kung if it's a right practice or a wrong practice, kung salita, ano, saying lang ba yan, just to scare us, parang ganon. So, and that, there's a taboo pa rin sa menstrual education eh. Hindi pa siya maayos, kumbaga, na there's a lot to talk about. We need to talk about the menstrual health properly sa ating edukasyon, sa ating schools. Kasi school is your formal venue to learn about yourself. Hindi lahat kasi may nanay na open to talk about menstruation with you. Hindi lahat may ganon. Your school is your only formal venue. So yes, there is an education uh, issue here na hopefully in the long run maging priority din. Kasi like I said, whether you're menstruating or not, menstruation affects you.
Right. Yeah, that's true. And I agree with you sa education because I also remember in high school when this was being taught. Parang
Mm-hmm.
I was like, okay, I get it because I experienced it. But what about the men? But like, do they actually get what it's like for us? Like for my brothers, because they grew up with me, they understand na I go through dysmenorrhea and things like that. But for some people, they don't have like a female um model, or they don't know any females, or maybe there
Yeah.
are young women also, let's say they're not in touch with their mothers, wala silang mother, or they
Mm-mm.
don't have big sisters. Like how are they
Mm-mm.
educated about this if yun nga it's not talked about in school? Kasi nga in school it's very scientific, it doesn't really
Mm-mm.
delve on how it affects you as a whole, on how it really,
Mm-mm.
'di ba? So now that you've touched upon that, like yun nga, you said menstruation affects, menstruators and non-menstruators. Like what do you exactly mean by that? Like how does it affect both?
Okay. Before that, kasi parang you said something about your brothers understanding what it's like for you. Um,
Yeah.
ano ba, parang, I guess you could say na yes, they see what it's like, but I believe they don't know the feeling of have. I mean, yeah, obviously they
Yeah.
don't know the feeling, pero they don't really know what it's like. I'm saying this kasi alam mo yun, parang when I started the We Bleed Red movement, when I started with a digital campaign, releasing those photos,
Yeah.
most men try to say that why are you showing this? It's not, hindi naman kailangan, gets namin, nag-menstruate kayo, oo, nag-PPMS kayo, pero hindi niyo naman kailangan sabihin. Parang, nakita ko from there na they don't really, hindi sila open
Right.
sa ganito klaseng topic. And what I meant by them being affected just as much is, for example, yun nga, Jamia, yung example na nasabi ko din kanina, when a working menstruator, let's say a mom, loses her job or lost her job because of the pandemic and has only so little resource to work with, so little money to work with, and she is menstruating, what will she choose though? Will she choose buying essential items, food, water for for her kids and for the family, or will she choose to buy menstrual products with such limited choice? Since I with such limited resources, nalilimit din yung choice mo. So you have to, I believe that menstruator will choose her family first.
Yeah.
So how does this affect the non-menstruator? You're affected by the non-menstruator kasi syempre magkaka-menstrual health problem siya eh. Hindi ka ba maapektuhan? You're surrounded. Half you're surrounded by half of menstruators. Kasi dalawa lang yun. You're either menstruating or you're not. So you're basically surrounded by these people. Okay, so ayun nga, non-menstruators are also affected by this. Can I give you a quote from a book, Wild Power, Discover the Magic of Your Menstrual Cycle,
Yeah.
to explain to you in a broad sense kung bakit affected sila. Kasi menstruation is also about them. So, ayun. So when this knowledge isn't recognized within society, it turns up as trouble, crazy emotions, destructive behaviors, and menstrual health problems, all of which impact on men too. So with that saying, lahat talaga naapektuhan ng menstrual health. It doesn't mean na hindi nila nakikita. It's not happening. Sanay kasi tayo na tinatago yung menstruation. So, pati yung problema about menstruation, hindi natin kinakwento sa mga kalalakihan or sa non-menstruators. But all in all, they're also just as affected by this.
Yeah, that's true. And I think, yeah, sometimes there are men who are, I think, almost traditional in a sense that when you talk to them about your period, it's almost like, okay, let's not talk anymore. Na parang, I kind of don't get that. Na parang maybe they think it's embarrassing for us. Kasi nga, we're used to the connotation na it's embarrassing to talk about. But I think it shouldn't. Yeah, like you said, it's a health issue. So it should be normalized. Like for me nga, I go through dysmenorrhea. And one of the things that happens to me when it gets so bad is sometimes it's so painful that I can't walk at all. I
Mm-mm.
can't move
Yeah.
at all. And I remember going through that sometimes while I'm at the office. There was a time na I'm at
Mm-mm.
the office and I can't move at all. And sometimes you really have to go home kasi nga you can't move anymore. And I had a male boss who almost I don't think like yeah, he wanted to talk about it. The parang when you say, it's because I'm going through that time of the month, parang siya, okay, say no more. Parang gano'n. Parang ko, yeah,
Mm-mm.
but you have to understand, like, yun nga, it's not just like because I'm bleeding, because it's affecting my whole body.
Mm-mm.
Like, yun nga, back pains, headaches, and all of these things. And yeah, I agree that you really have to educate also non-menstruators for them to get it, and so that we can all like address it. Like, yun nga, if we see it as a health issue, it's easier to address it, diba?
True, true. Tama yun.
Mm-mm.
At saka, ano, bale, I had this conversation din pala. I was interviewed also
Mm-mm.
before, and then I encouraged menstruators, especially working menstruators, or well, pati na yung mga students, na
Yeah.
if you're menstruating and you couldn't go to work or you couldn't go to school, admit the truth. Sabihin mo you're having dysmenorrhea or you're having the worst period cramps ever. Kasi they need to know that this kind of pain exists,
Yeah.
na hindi siya joke. Kasi I've had people tell me na when they're not going to work, ang sinasabi nila is may ano sila, trangkaso, may ubo, may sipon, but they rarely say dysmenorrhea just because they don't want men to feel uncomfortable. But that should not be the case. If you're feeling dysmenorrhea, if you're having dysmenorrhea, tell your boss. May it be a man or a woman or whatever gender he or she is or they is, parang you need to tell them. You need to tell them the truth kasi it's one way of bringing the issue to the table. If we continue to hide it, whether unconsciously or consciously, it will affect everyone. Eh. It
Right.
starts with one conversation and let it be like a rumor mill. Let it go around. Let people hear it. Alam mo yon, na
Yeah.
menstruation exists, period pain exists.
Yeah, and it's normal. Like my pain taga, I remember sometimes nga if I'm walking in the middle of a mall, I would have to stop walking because it's just really painful. Like for me naman, like because my period is like that, I've kind of gotten used to the notion na I can talk about it, no problem. But yeah, I agree with you that it really needs to be talked about more.
Mm-mm.
'Di ba? Mm. And now, of course, like, yun nga, since we're having these conversations, right? I think also one of the things that really affect perception is also like how the media or how brands would portray periods, right?
Mm-mm.
So,
Yeah.
do you think that there are brands right now in the market that are already kind of like challenging the norms or changing perceptions in what they do?
Okay.
Mm-mm.
That's a very great question, Jamie. And actually, yan din yung nilulook forward ko na tanongin mo
Yeah.
tonight. Kasi, ang tawag dito, if I'm being completely honest,
Yeah.
not really.
Mm.
Wala pa akong nakikitang brands aligned with my advocacy kasi my advocacy is centered on demystifying and destigmatizing menstruation. But how
Yeah.
can we do this if these brands, I'm not gonna say certain names, pero if these brands continue to represent period blood with blue liquid?
Right.
Do you get my point?
Yeah.
Kasi it's period blood. It's a blood born not out of violence. It's a normal biological function, and yet it's something that people are really disgusted with. So when brands use blue liquid and period blood, this connotes the idea, or this gives the idea that period blood is something to be ashamed of. It's something that you need to hide kasi madumi. I mean, why else would you use blue liquid unless takot ka pakita sa mga tao kasi sa tingin mo kadiri? Do you get my point, Jamia?
Yeah.
So that's what I'm trying to challenge these brands na if you're really advocating for something such as women empowerment, advocate it properly. I want to challenge them, kumbaga, kasi 'di ba? It's something na we have to. It's 2021. Period blood is not dirty. Is blood born out of violence.
Right.
But pero we're so comfortable seeing it. It's nothing new pag nakakita ka ng violence sa TV, sa movies, sa news. But if pag nakakita ka ng regla, suddenly you're gonna look the other way because you find it dirty, which is it's not. Alam mo yun, period is a sign of life. It's a sign of menstrual health. That it's a sign. It's a good sign. It's a sign of power. So what I'm trying to say, if brands want to be aligned with the advocacy, maybe start by the proper representation of period blood, and then we can work from there.
Right. And I think, yeah, since we also mentioned education earlier, I think that's also one thing brands could start working on as well, diba? Like maybe they
Mm-mm.
should have more education drives or something just to really, advocate for this or just to
Yeah,
really increase awareness,
or
diba?
gender sensitivity workshops. Kasi when you have gender workshops, it also brings the attention to attention yung the way you represent women, men, and well, menstruators and non-menstruators.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Kasi oo nga, I'm thinking like even locally or international brands, I agree with you na I don't think I've seen anyone who really talks about this in a different light na I mean lately it's about women empowerment and there's really nothing wrong with that. But like what you said, like what we've talked about so far, yeah, I think it's time that we update the narrative, and we shift
Yeah.
like the way we communicate this, diba?
Mm-mm, mm-mm. Tapos, actually, Jamia, you can search then UK Body Form. They're a menstrual product brand. They're a menstrual brand. So they sell menstrual pads, tampons, ganyan, and all that and the like. But when they advertise it, they use red liquid.
Oh really?
They
I
are the
think
first.
I'm looking at them right now.
They
So,
were the first.
that's
So
oo nga. Yeah, that's nice. Oo.
so kung kaya ng UK, I think kaya din ng Pilipinas.
Yeah, is this brand like exclusive sa UK? Like, would you know, or is
Um,
it under
Hindi pa ako nakakita ng body form dito sa Pilipinas.
right?
Wala pa, I don't think meron sa Pilipinas ng body form.
And I'm not sure if this is under like one of the big brands like P&G or Unilever. I don't think. So yeah, this is actually an interesting ano nga, like you pointed
Yeah.
out na I do hope
Mm-mm.
other brands can do this also. Kasi yeah, it's about time we start changing the narrative, updating the
Yeah,
narrative.
you're right. You're right about the updating the narrative. We need this kasi if you want to grow your brand, you have to grow then with the mga bagong knowledge, bagong ideas, or you need to have an open mind kung if you want to grow your brand. Dapat hindi tayo masyadong nakasarado sa traditional or sa kultura na meron. Dapat we have to be progressive then.
Right, yeah, that's true. Kasi I mean, right now, some brands, I think one of the things that they're doing to be progressive, and I applaud some of the brands for doing this, is trying to be more biodegradable when it comes to the napkins, right? So I think that's one. But also, yun nga, I think now that we're having this conversation, they also need to update yun nga how they communicate. Kasi, kids grow up, they see these things, and they are influenced by these things that they see it as okay, maybe it's forming their perceptions, it's forming their beliefs or thoughts about this. And not just children, not just women, but even men as well are seeing
Mm,
this. And yun nga, they're seeing it as something that it shouldn't be talked about, but it really should. Yeah.
tama. Yes.
Mhm. So, yun nga, now that we talked about, like, yun nga, sometimes wala pala talagang brand, like, maybe, like, a handful, like, yun nga, you mentioned Body Form that are doing something. So,
Mm-mm. Pero I mean, I'm not trying to badmouth them.
yeah,
I'm just trying to make them see what they need also to see, which is, progress. Na tama na sa blue liquid. Let's start showing them the real thing, the real deal, which is, red liquid should be used to represent period blood.
yeah, that's,
Nothing wrong with that.
yeah, exactly. Mm-mm. And for me naman even, like, yun nga, if brands or even media portray this in a more realistic way, then I think people will really get it. Not just menstruators, but even non-menstruators. Kasi I think some menstruators or some women still also feel like this is something na yun nga you mentioned earlier na something that they should hide. And ako, I really think that we should make this, yun nga, we should normalize this. Kasi nga parang, yun nga, we're progressive na eh. It's about time.
Yes.
And yeah, this is a health thing. Na parang for me, if it's health, why should we keep it a secret, diba? No, now that
Tama.
we talked about brands, I also have a question. Like, maybe, do you know any other personalities or influencers or maybe other advocates for this similar advocacy? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I do, well, not really influencers. It's more like independent groups,
Yeah.
much like We Bleed Red. We have tayo si Malaya. Friend ko yung nag-start noon. Tapos, I also know Kwentong Regla. That one naman is also a project of mine na advocating for menstrual equity then. And then we also have I Support the Girls Manila. We have
Yeah.
Amarella PH. Yun, they are a group that advocates for sexual and reproductive health care in the Philippines. So they also advocate for menstrual health. So we have groups, independent groups that advocate for this. Pero I don't really know a personality or a
Right.
influencer that does
And
it.
maybe they should know. Like, people should really start doing it talaga. Yeah.
I think yun na nga eh. Actually, if I'm not sure if you wanna share this, pero okay lang din if you
Yeah.
share mo, Jamia. Pero like, I'll give you like an experience I had. I will not name the
Yeah.
brand. So medyo chika
Right.
siya. Um, Recently, like last month, we got a proposal for a partnership, but they asked us to provide 100 100 team members. But since We Bleed Red is working through volunteerism, we cannot provide that. But we're willing to work with a partnership na kung ano man yung um, result na kailangan nila, itatry namin ibigay to the best of our abilities if it means that they will donate
Yeah.
napkins to us. Kasi those napkins that they will donate, we will give it to menstruators
Yeah.
in need. But after that, they didn't reply back anymore when they found out that we couldn't give them the 100 members. Siguro kasi We Bleed Red is not, I guess,
Right.
influencer enough or hindi pa kami relevant enough to to do it for them. So it's a PR stunt for me. I believe
Actually,
that
yeah,
it was a
I would
PR
agree with
stunt
you.
kasi they recently released the campaign and we never heard from them. But alam mo yun, they tapped a lot of influencers, micro and micro
Yeah,
and
yeah,
macro,
maybe we could
tama ba?
consider, yeah, micro and macro. Oh, sorry, yeah.
Ayan, so yeah, micro and macro influencers. They tapped those influencers, but they never tapped us back, which is I find really disheartening, and I'm very disappointed kasi we really do caters to
Yeah,
menstruators in need. Yung mga napkin na ibibigay nila, hindi ko naman aangkinin yun,
right.
ipamimigay namin yun. So, but then again, since we're not influencer enough, ish enough, so parang it saddens me na kasi they started the email with we're tapping organizations that caters to women empowerment and
Yeah,
feminism. So that's us. That's definitely We Bleed Red. But we're not influencers. So hindi na nila kami tinap back. And alam mo
yeah,
yun, it's a PR stunt. It's a crazy PR stunt na okay, you're advocating for women empowerment, but you're excluding those people who
yeah,
are helping menstruators in need. Okay, I see what you did there. So it's a challenge for brands na if you're really advocating for women
mhm,
empowerment, make
yeah,
sure
yeah, yeah,
you'd really do it. Alam mo yon, like this is 2021. Enough with the PR tactics. PR is okay, marketing is okay, so long as you
yeah.
do
And
it
with sincerity,
correctly.
right? Yeah,
And yeah, with sincerity. I mean, I've had local brands come up to me to help us. And they really do it. They really donate. But alam mo yun, konti lang naman yung um, audience ng Weebly, pero tinutulungan pa rin nila kami. And these are
right.
small local brands. Pero ito big brands na I'm sure 20 boxes of napkins won't
Yeah,
hurt you, won't hurt your income, pero they couldn't give it to us kasi hindi kami
right.
influencer enough. So that really hurts me. And it makes you question social media as well. Na ano mo yun, na okay, people are starting to advocate for things, pero is it just for an
Mm.
image? Parang, so it's disappointing. And that's what I want them to know, na things like this exist. Don't
Yeah,
believe
I
everything
mean,
you see.
now kasi even with brands, a lot of them are really pushing for women empowerment. But hearing what, of course, your story, sometimes yun nga, not everyone is as sincere about it as you think they are. I mean,
Mhm.
sometimes you'd have to question na nga, are they really doing this because they want to, this is something they believe in, or just to really go with the flow, or just to be trendy, or just to be quote unquote woke, diba?
Tama,
So I really,
yes.
yeah, I'm glad na you have, of course, those local brands who are really willing to help out. Kasi all of these small acts, like no matter how big or small, it's going to make a difference, right? And I think that's really the importance
Yes.
of, of course, what you do and what other brands are doing. And of course, hopefully nga, everyone will start to, make that change also, or be more, proactive in changing that narrative. So, do you have any
Mm-mm.
other thoughts like you want to, like we have, that maybe we haven't talked about, that you'd like to share?
Yeah, definitely, Jimmy. Actually, I'd like to talk about the word menstruator or using
Right.
the word menstruator as compared to using the word women. Because this has been an
Right.
ongoing debate. Pero to
Mm-mm.
me, it's really simple. Not all women menstruate, and not all those who menstruate
Right.
are women. This is 2021. We have to be gender uh, inclusive now. We have to be gender, we have to respect the gender or the identities of
Right.
other people. We are no longer stuck in the binary
Right.
man and woman. There are other factors that we need to consider,
Mm-mm.
like trans men. Trans men are men, but
Right.
they menstruate.
Mm-mm.
Some menstruate. Trans women are women, but they do
Right.
not menstruate. So therefore, not
Mm-mm.
all women menstruate. Pero alam mo yun, we've been getting, when we started this campaign and we talked about, trans men or men, we actually got hated. Well, hindi man hated na in general. More like we had a troll that's asking us now, what is the Philippines perception on, men menstruating? Because I did not answer as Philippines. I answered as We Bleed Red. And I told them that, trans men are men. So they menstruate. Yeah, men menstruate. Some
Yeah.
men menstruate. I mean, we have to be gender
Yeah.
inclusive. And if you can't accept that men menstruate, so don't say women are the ones just menstruating. Just say menstruators instead.
Right.
It's a start eh. Our language is stuck in the binary man and woman, male and female. Pero the truth is, there's so much more than that. Pati nga din sa sex ed, male, female, intersex. No one
Yeah.
talks about intersex. So we have to, alam mo yon, if we're talking about sex organs, then yes, female sex organs are the ones who are menstruating, those who have female sex organs. But if we're talking about gender identity, which could mean man, woman, trans, or gender queer, or basically you don't want to be identified to anything, then you are just a
Right.
menstruator. You could be defined as menstruator. So I ako personally, hindi ko alam why men, sorry, not just men, but why some people are so offended when we say that men are also menstruating. Like, parang it shows the
Right.
toxic masculinity na fragile masculinity na sobrang taas ba ng ego mo na na-hurt ka kapag sinasabihan namin kayo nagme-menstruate? Eh, kung hindi ka naman nagme-menstruate, edi hindi ka nagme-menstruate, pero may mga lalaki nagme-menstruate. So that's what we're trying to
Right.
change also, and when it comes to talking about narrative, now we should start talking or using the word menstruators, not just women, when referring to
Yeah,
people who
that's true.
menstruate.
And since we talked about brands, maybe that's one thing brands should also address, right? Not just having women as,
Yeah.
the ones in their ads or models or whatever.
Mm. Pati din yung paggamit ng white pants, like, bihira lang ako makita ng babaeng on her, or sorry, menstruator on her bleeding cycle na magwo-wear
Yeah.
siya ng white pants when she's on her period. That's not That's
Yeah.
not practical. I mean, may iba
Mm-mm.
na brave, oo. Pero pag sa commercials, gagamitin yung white. Like, tapos happy-happy. Like, not everyone is on a good mood when they're
Yeah.
menstruating. Alam mo yun, menstrual pads doesn't necessarily lift up our moods. It makes the menstruating efficient, but not necessarily lifts up our mood. So, wala lang. Ang daming factors na need to be considered, especially when advertising for something as menstruation or
Yeah,
menstrual
that's true.
products.
Oo, yun nga. Like, if there are any brands
There's a lot
listening,
of
seriously,
work.
you need to do a lot of things. Oh, yeah, that's true.
Yeah, totoo. Sorry. I mean, I don't mean to
Yeah.
hate. I don't hate naman. Pero, 'di ba, if you're open to educating yourselves, if you're open to, progress, then maybe consider these things na
Yeah,
pinag-usapan
oo,
natin,
that's, oo nga.
Janina.
Kasi, oo nga, let's be realistic. Oo nga. So, I hope there would become a time talaga now we're all more aware, like brands are really starting to make that change or that progress. I mean, it's good that UK brand has started to do it. Hopefully, other brands nga would do it as well, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Oo,
Yes.
why don't you take this time now,
Tama.
Ninay, to invite everyone to check out We Bleed Red? Or, share what else you have
Okay.
planned in the next few, like, months.
Okay, definitely. Hi guys. If you're listening here, please do follow We Bleed Red on our social media pages like Facebook We Bleed Red Movement and on Instagram webleedred.ph. We also have another project coming up which is Kwentong Regla. You can find us on Instagram kwentong.regla, where menstruators can share their stories about menstruation, to help the conversation going. And yeah, upcoming projects, well, We'll definitely release that sa social media pages namin, but you can assure that we're gonna have community workshops, online maybe, or pwede din magkakaroon din kami mga napkin donation drives as
Yeah.
always. So, if you want to donate, let us know. We'll have that then ready for you guys soon
Yeah,
enough.
so thank you again, Ninai, for your time. And don't forget to check out We Bleed Red on Facebook and Instagram. And of course, if you want to work with Ninai or help her out in her advocacy, go ahead and reach out to her. So once again, thank you guys for listening. If you enjoyed this discussion, make sure to follow our podcast to get notified on the latest uploads. If you want to share your thoughts, suggest topics, or collaborate, visit us on our socials at the Gen Z Marketer Podcast on Facebook, at Gen Z MKT on Instagram, and at anchor.fm/Gen Z MKT.